Hey, what's going on, everybody? Sam and the Kim here, and I'm back with another one. Today, I did get a lot of questions. I appreciate you guys for those questions. We will be answering those at the end of the video. But today, I'll be talking about some topics that I wanted to cover. First things first, Montana's defensive coordinator, Ronnie Bradford, has taken a position with the Miami Dolphins. This being reported by Adam Schefter, former NFL defensive back and assistant coach Ronnie Bradford, who was Montana's defensive coordinator last season, is returning to the NFL and joining the Miami Dolphins as their senior special teams assistant. First off, congrats to Coach Bradford. You got the DC job. You did a phenomenal job. So congrats to you on getting that senior special teams assistant position with Montana. Obviously, the next question for a lot of Montana fans is who takes the defensive coordinator position next. My first guess would be Tim Houck. Somebody has reported that supposedly Tim Houck doesn't want a full-time coaching position going forward, or he doesn't want, a position coach position going forward. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. I believe the way this Montana defense is run, the system is really the same. It just depends on who the guy is. It was the 3-3-5 under Bear. It's the 3-3-5 under Bradford. Probably just some different intricacies within the defense and how it's called. But for the most part, I believe it's all the same. But it'll be interesting to see who comes in to take that position. Do they bring somebody in? Do they hire from within? I know Houck usually likes to hire from within if he can. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it goes forward. My question would be, obviously, I think the defense improved a little bit under Bradford. I think they were a little better under Coach Bradford than they were under Bear. Obviously, we had some amazing defenses under Bear, but we got to the national championship. I'd have to look at the numbers to know for sure, but I'm almost positive that the numbers were a little stronger under Coach Bradford. We will see how that goes going forward. Obviously, Coach Bradford was a defensive backs coach first, and then he became the DC. So, and obviously he has a bunch of NFL and FBS experience coaching at the FBS and NFL level. So, congrats to him on getting that position. My thought is it's probably obviously he's the DC, but he's the DC at Montana. He was the DC at Montana, so the pay is probably around $100,000 yearly. He's probably getting more than that in the NFL. I would only guess that he's getting more than that. I couldn't imagine he'd leave a defensive coordinator position to make less in the NFL. But it is an NFL position, so maybe he's hoping to get back into the NFL. Maybe he wants to be an NFL DC. Maybe he wants to be an NFL position coach. Maybe he wants to be a head coach in the NFL. Who knows? This is definitely furthering his coaching career, and it's ultimately going to benefit him and his family. So congrats to him. I hope he has major success with the Dolphins. Obviously, they got Mike McDaniels, Tua, Tyreek, all the dudes they have on their defense, Jalen Ramsey, a bunch of stars, Xavier Howard. They got dogs out there, so good luck to him and good luck on his future. But obviously, everybody's focus now goes to who's Montana's next OC, DC. Who's Montana's next DC? That is the question to be asked. Excuse me. Interesting that Montana has lost 2 coaches within the last couple of weeks. Excuse me. I just ate. If you guys are always wondering why I'm always hiccuping on my Tuesday videos, it's because before I record them, I usually make my breakfast. I make breakfast every morning. I'm a breakfast guy. I'm a morning guy, but I'm a breakfast guy. I will make breakfast every single day. Sometimes maybe on Sunday I might miss, but usually Monday through Friday, Monday through Saturday, I'm making breakfast every day. So if you guys ever want some breakfast, hit me up. Maybe I can whip us up something. But that's why I'm always hiccuping when I get on here with you guys. So hang with me. But it's interesting that Montana just lost Coach Rosie, who used to be the offensive coordinator, was an offensive analyst this past season. He just went to Cal Poly to take their wide receivers position as well as their pass game coordinator. And now we just lost Coach Bradford. It'll be interesting to see how the rest of the spring goes. I couldn't foresee us losing more coaches, but I honestly couldn't have foresaw us losing Coach Bradford. So take that for what it is. And we're going to push forward. Obviously, they're about to start spring ball, I think, in like another week. So that's going to be very interesting to see, what things are like when spring ball starts and, how things progress and, how the defense looks and who's going to be calling the plays. Maybe they'll hire before spring ball starts, or maybe they'll just go without a defensive coordinator for the remainder of the spring. Who knows? it'll be very interesting. And this actually leads me into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is talking about Georgia State. So this is being reported by Brandon Marcello. Georgia State has postponed spring practice and its spring game because head coach Sean Elliott resigned to become the tight ends coach at South Carolina 2 days into spring practices at Georgia State University. Now, from what I read and the things that I've seen, this was a personal decision for Coach Elliott. I believe he coached at South Carolina for a long time, and I think his family actually still lives out there, so he's been coaching at Georgia State. And it said something in an article, this was a quote from him, saying that he had promised his daughter that he would be there for her senior year, or that he would try his hardest to be there for her senior year. And, once the position got offered to him in South Carolina, it was just simply something he couldn't turn down. Now, on the issue, on the point of the players and the players that are getting left behind, there's a bunch of dudes that, obviously just signed, just committed for Coach Elliott. And then there's a bunch of dudes that came there for him. I think he's been there for like 7 seasons. So he's made a lot of relationships and brought in a lot of recruits, obviously, to be able to field a team. I think it's going to be interesting to see. They're canceling the rest of their spring practices and spring game. That's brutal, especially for guys that, might have been thinking about transferring, might just need another opportunity to be able to prove themselves in spring. I think this takes opportunities away from guys being able to prove themselves during spring practices, being able to prove themselves in the spring game. And obviously, like, we play football because we like to play the game. So obviously these guys are wanting to play the game, and they're not going to get that opportunity in spring due to the coaches leaving. I'd be interested to know how. It says postponed in this post, but I believe the article that I read had said they weren't gonna finish them. So I would honestly like some clarity on that. I don't think they would fully just cancel spring practices in a spring game, because that's so important to evaluations as a coach, and then evaluations as a player as well, like evaluating where you are, where you stand, how you improve how you're improving during the off season. Those practices mean a lot. So if they are truly canceled for the rest of the year, that's going to suck for those players. But I hope they are able to find a way to be able to get their spring practices in, and hopefully they're able to get the right coach in. Who knows how long that process is going to take? Just like the Montana situation, who knows if these guys are going to hire from within to find a new head coach, or if they're going to hire from outside. But obviously it's not going to be a quick process unless they are hiring from within. That would probably make it the quickest process, as if they were hiring from somebody who's already on the coaching staff. But just sucks for those guys. Also sucks for the coaches that were underneath him, because now they have no job security. They were part of Coach Elliott's coaching staff. So now if they bring in another head coach, that new head coach does not have to retain their jobs, doesn't have to keep them at all. So sucks for everybody involved. Nobody really has any job security anymore, even the players. If the coach comes in, say they run an air raid system, a coach comes in and he wants to run the ball, there might be a lot of guys that get weeded out, a lot of guys that get pushed out, a lot of guys that lose opportunities over this. So that's going to be something that I'm going to be paying attention to and interested to see how it turns out. But I will say this, I honestly, as a player, I don't know what I would think about this, especially being a couple days into the spring practices and then our coach leaves. The closest thing I can relate to this is over COVID. We did like 2 days of spring practice. I think fall practice. We only did like 1 day of fall practice. And then the Big Sky announced that they were canceling our season. And, that was just kind of like a kicker, like, dang, why did we even start spring practice? Or dang, why can't we play, just play anyway? I don't know. Just a bunch of thoughts. But for these players, it's definitely a killer for them, losing your head coach. You don't know what to expect going forward. There's a bunch of question marks up in the air now at this point. So feel for those guys, and hopefully Georgia State, the athletic director, is going to get it handled. But it seems like it was an amicable split up. He said in a quote, he said they've been coming in here, in reference to his players and coaches, they've been coming in here ever since we laughed together and cried together. I'm proud of what we've done here. That's what Coach Elliott said. And I think that just speaks to the relationships that he had made, because, I'm sure there's a lot of players who aren't happy. I'm sure there's some coaches that are kind of disappointed. But, ultimately, like I said in the beginning, this was a personal decision. He's trying to be closer to his family. You're living in Georgia. Your family lives in South Carolina. That's not an ideal situation. You're spending a majority of the year away from your family. So that's got to be hard. But good for him to be able to get a job to go back and be closer to his family. I think he's actually making more at the South Carolina job as well. So that probably played a part in it too. But good for him. Sucks for the players. Hopefully they're able to get a good situation in the end and work it all out. I had a few questions that lingered over from last week, and I'm gonna address those right now. So somebody asked me last week, I think this was late last week. They said, "Are you a morning person or a night person?" It's funny that I just addressed that, not even realizing that I was about to answer this question. But I am a morning person. I could probably be a night person too. Like I can stay up and feel fine, but I really like to get up early in the mornings and do a lot of the things that I have to do in the morning because I just feel like you have so much more of your day left to you to do whatever you want to do when you get stuff done in the morning. And I think part of this relates to me going to Montana because for the first full year of my career at Montana, we had to wake up at like 5 in the morning to lift. I think our lift was at 5:30 or like 5:45, so I was getting up at like 5 in the morning so that we could make it, because we would also walk across campus. Obviously we're in the dorm, so we're walking across campus, so we got to get up probably like 15-20 minutes. We had to be early. So I've always been an early morning person. I enjoy waking up in the mornings. I enjoy getting things done early. I enjoy being done with my day early. So if anything can ever happen early in the morning, I'd prefer early in the morning rather than late at night. Not because I'm not a night person. I think I can be either. I don't know if anybody's ever said that. I'm sure there's people who have said that, but I could really be either a morning person or a night person, but I prefer the morning for sure. Okay. Thank you for that question. That question was from Jeff Hardy. I don't think it's the wrestler Jeff Hardy. It's spelled a little differently, but thank you for your question, Jeff Hardy. Next question was, "Hey Sam, I always believe the passing game will open up for everyone with passes to tight ends. Also play action. Help me understand why Griz have been reluctant to have consistent use with tight ends. It is not because we had a tight end out on injury this past season. We have big tight ends. A 10-yard pass, question mark." That is from Brian Armstrong. Brian, I don't really know why they don't use the tight ends as much. Personally, what I would say is it takes a special tight end to be able to get open and run routes the way they need to be run and get open in the middle of the field. Not saying Schaefer was not getting open last year. Personally, I didn't notice him. Honestly, I didn't notice him in many routes last year, but I also didn't notice him getting open on those routes. I mean, when he ran routes, I think he was relatively open, but a lot of the times the way they use Schaefer, and might be what you were referring to, a lot of times the way they used Schaefer and Barker last year was as decoys, like on a mesh, they're rubbing for the mesh to get the receiver open, or a lot of times Schaefer was kept in to block in a heavy protection set. I didn't notice Schaefer running too many routes, and maybe that's because of what they saw in spring ball over the summer and fall camp. Maybe Schaefer is not the best route runner. He's a bigger tight end, so obviously you hope that he can block well, and he is a really good blocking tight end. I think that's how they see him. I mean, just personally, I think Cole is just a different breed, and I think with receiving tight ends, they have to kind of be a different breed. They have to be able to run routes. They have to know the intricacies of being able to run routes, being able to get open, being able to feel those zones. Because especially as a tight end, those windows aren't always pretty. You're dealing with D ends at the line of scrimmage, D linemen at the line of scrimmage. You're dealing with linebackers at the second level. You're going through a lot of trash. And one would think that Schaefer, being a bigger body, could deal with that stuff. But also speed comes into play. Route savvy comes into play. I don't know. I can only guess that Coach Pease didn't see what he needed to see in order to incorporate Schaefer into the offense. But also, I think Schaefer and Cole are two different players. Like, Cole Grossman is a receiver in a tight end's body. I said it during my top 10 players to watch last week, and I mean that. Like, Cole could be a receiver. He's just a big guy. He's like 6'5", so it makes sense to put him at tight end. But he can do everything a receiver can do. He's got hella route savvy. He's very smooth. He's got great hops. I mean, his hands are amazing. I mean, he just has everything you want in a tight end. He's got the size. He's got the ability. He can run the great routes, all that stuff. With Schaefer, to me, it seems like he's more of a blocking type tight end. And really, when you look at the makeup of our roster, I don't think we really had any receiving tight ends that resemble that of Cole Grossman. Barker, I think, can run routes and is a decent tight end, but I don't think he's anything like Cole. And that's not to crap on either of these guys. It's not to crap on Schaefer. That's not to crap on Barker. This is simply me just highlighting what Cole does outside of those guys. Those guys are great tight ends. They do their job well. We wouldn't have went to the national championship last year without either of those guys. But I think there's levels, and I think Coach P's recognized that as well. So I think the lack of tight end usage in the offense last year was due to maybe them not fitting the skill set that maybe Coach P's foresaw for the tight end in a receiving tight end. That would be my best answer to you. I don't know 100% why they weren't utilized more in the passing game. But also, I'll say this, there's only one ball. We got Eli Gilman, we got Osmo, we got Xavier, we had Clifton, who was also taking carries, and then you have Keelan, you have Junior, you have Racanelli, you have Aaron. I mean, there's a lot of mouths to feed on this offense, a lot of guys who can get the job done. I feel like when you're thinking of where to divvy up the touches on the offense, the tight end probably falls to the end of the list. And when you're most likely thinking about guys who can get open in the passing game to be able to get the ball, the tight ends last year probably fell at the end of the list. When you have three really good receivers, two all-conference receivers. Well, I don't even know if Keelan and Junior. I know Junior was all-conference. I don't know if Keelan was all-conference. But when you look at the makeup of our receiving room with the Montana Grizzlies, the tight ends kind of fall at the end of the list. So that would be my answer to that as to why they didn't see more touches. And that makes the most sense to me. I mean, Cole and Schaefer are different guys. They both do things very well. Schaefer, personally, in my opinion, is a really good blocker, a better blocker than he is route runner. And personally for Cole, Cole's a better route runner than he is a blocker. Like, I think Schaefer blocks way better than Cole. And that's nothing against Cole. Cole knows I love him to death. But Cole is a receiving tight end, and that's what he does best. So I think there's levels. I think there's strengths and weaknesses to both of these guys, and I think Coach P's played into that last year. Thank you for your question, Brian. Okay, next, I wanted to congratulate the Montana Grizzlies women's and men's basketball teams. They got dubs this weekend. First, on the Lady Griz side of things, they beat the Cats. It was Cat Griz weekend for basketball. The Lady Griz got a dub. The men got a dub, both in blowout fashion. The Lady Griz won 72-50. Danny Barch scored 14 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 of 2 from three-point shooting, and 5 of 8 from the field on 63% shooting. She is a rebound machine. Me and my fiance went to a game last week. It was when what am I trying to say? It might have been 2 weeks ago, but it was when Montana played Northern Arizona, and we went to that game, and they lost. But man, Danny was grabbing every rebound possible, every rebound in sight. She was grabbing it, and I remember one of the guys we were sitting next to, he said, like, he had mentioned her, like, earlier in the game, and he was like, man, like, she's a rebounding machine. Like, she grabs everything. Excuse me. And I remember after he said that, I was watching her the rest of that game, and it felt like every offensive or defensive rebound that the Griz had was grabbed by her. Amazing player. Great dub for the women. Congrats to Coach Holzinger on the Cat Griz win. I know those wins mean a lot, and I know you guys are getting to the thick of the season now. The tournament's gonna start soon, so I know it's tight time right now. So good luck to you guys for the rest of the season. To the Lady Griz, congrats on a great dub in Cat Griz. I know all the fans are very happy to see that, and congrats and good luck going forward in the season. One other thing I wanted to mention about Danny, her season averages are 9.2 points, 9.8 rebounds, and 2.4 assists. She's averaging almost a double-double, 9.2 points and 9.8 rebounds. I need her to have like a 30-rebound game so she can get it up to 10 rebounds and say she averaged 10 rebounds for the season. And maybe get like a 30-point game too so you can average a double-double for the season. But really good job to them. Really good job to the Lady Griz. Another one of their leading scorers for the Lady Griz was Matt Koenig. She had 14 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds on 6 of 15 shooting. Congrats to the ladies again. The men Griz team, the men Montana Grizzlies, they won 88-69. Annan Moody dropped 29 points. He was 5 from 9 from 3, and he was 9 for 17 from 53% on 53% shooting. One thing I realized about Annan Moody, and I hadn't seen any men's Griz games this year, so this was my first game watching them play. And man, I remember he shot a shot from like deep, and I was like, man, like he's got a green light like that. And then I watched him throughout the rest of the game, and he just kept firing them up, and he was hitting them too. And one thing that seems to me with the men's and women's Grizzlies teams is they seem to be shooting teams. And I don't know if maybe that's just the games I caught, but the Griz team threw up a lot of three-pointers. And I remember during that NAU game, I mean, this might have been part of the reason why they lost the game. I'm talking about the Lady Griz now. This might have been part of the reason why they lost that game. But I remember during that Northern Arizona game, they shot a ton of threes. And I think at like halftime, they might have had like 5 points in the paint at halftime of that game. And I remember telling that guy who had told me about Danny, he was like, yeah, I remember telling him, I was like, man, like they haven't got any points. And they were shooting the three fairly successfully. That's kind of what kept them around during the game. But I remember saying, like, man, they're going to have to be able to get some points in the paint. They're going to have to be able to, penetrate the paint if they want, to be successful. And, NAU is a very good squad. I think they had a lady on that team who dropped maybe 27 or 30. She was balling in the paint. She was getting whatever that she wanted, and NAU had a really good game. But I remember our ladies struggled in the paint, and I don't know if that's because they don't really operate out of the paint of offensively, or if they just weren't able to get points in the paint. There were some missed layups, some missed points close to the basket that I saw, but they were throwing up a lot of threes. But the reason I bring that up is because during the men's basketball game, I saw them, the Cat Griz game this weekend on Saturday, I saw them throwing up a lot of threes, and I didn't know if that's how they play or, that was just a way they had to play to win the game. But they beat up on the Cats. We love to see that. Another one of their leading scorers during that men's Griz game was Deshaun Thomas. He had 20 points. 10 rebounds. He was 3 for 6 from three-point range and 7 for 11 from the field on 63% shooting. I think he's probably like a 4 or a 5 is the vibes I was getting, and where he was playing in the offense was maybe a 4 or 5. But he had a really good game too. He was a bigger guy, and I was surprised to see him throw up that first three. And I think he might have missed his first three that he threw up, but he seemed very confident throwing it up. And he threw up a couple more and made them. And I was like, good for him. But they seem to have a very good team. A pretty fairly good team. I don't know where they fall in the rankings. I think they're like 3rd or 4th in the Big Sky right now. I think our ladies are like 2nd or 3rd in the Big Sky, so they're competitive. I know through a lot of the years, Coach DeCure has been able to get his guys going for the tournament. Whether they had a decent season or a really good season, I know they always show up for the tournament, so I'll be interested to see how they turn out in the tournament. And then one more thing I wanted to address about the Montana State men's game. Because obviously I said I didn't get to catch the ladies game, but during the men's game, Montana State had a player number 20, and anybody who was in the Adams Center that night on Saturday night watching this game can attest to this. Number 20 was on the ground more than anybody I've ever seen. Like, I swear number 20 was on the ground more than he was vertical for this game. Like, anytime he got touched, he was falling, he was flopping, and we had a discussion in the stands. I think they might have called. Now, somebody correct me in the comments if you know. Do they call flopping in college? Because I swear I heard the announcer say flopping. It might have been Denny. I swear I heard Denny say that he's getting called for flopping because it was like on a screen or something, and he fell like he had been doing the whole game, and the ref, he got the penalty because I remember we shot a technical. So they either called like a technical foul on him for arguing a call, or they called him for flopping. But I swear I heard flopping because I remember that's what I told the guy next to me. But you guys let me know if they call that. And if you guys were at the game, let me know if you guys remember what I'm talking about, because I'm pretty sure they called him for flopping. But I say that to say, because number 20, it was getting ridiculous. Like, everybody was commenting on it. Like, bro, please stay up. Like, you're not getting hit like that. Like, this game, like, stop it, bro. Stop it. But that didn't help them win the game. The Griz ended up winning anyway. So congrats to the lady and men's Griz football teams. Congrats on a Cat Griz win. The men swept. I can't remember if the ladies swept. I believe the men swept the season, and then obviously we swept the matchup this weekend. Men and women both won. Sorry, Cats. Boo-hoo to you. But better luck next time. Anyway, so next thing I wanted to talk about was AllStar Weekend. So the first thing I wanted to ask you guys is, like, is the dunk contest over? Because I feel like the last few years, like, it feels like almost after we got done with the Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon era of the dunk contest, it was kind of really, like, eradicated. Like, Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine absolutely destroyed the dunk contest, doing crazy dunks, super creativity during all their dunks. Like, it was great to watch. All the fans loved it. But it seems like just over the years, it's continued to fall and fall and fall and fall. And people are talking about how, there's not really a lot of name guys who compete in the dunk competition. Like, just think of Matt McClung. Matt McClung is a G League guy. Obviously, he came up throughout the social media era, doing some crazy dunks, having hops, and then played in college, transferred a couple of times, but I think he ended his career at Texas Tech. Anyway, he got into the NBA, and he's kind of floated around, but he's been a G League guy. But he's the back-to-back dunk champion the last 2 years, and I don't think that's what the league wants. Congrats to Matt McClung. I mean, amazing feat to be able to win the dunk competition, especially as a G Leaguer. Like, think about it from his perspective for a second. Like, he's a G League guy. He's competing against all these NBA players, winning the dunk competition. That has to say something about him, and, that's a story that he can tell one day. But on the NBA side of things, and on the, them trying to sell the dunk competition, them trying to sell AllStar Weekend, them trying to do all of those things, that's probably not the best look for them, to have one of their G League guys be the guy who's winning the competition when you have a bunch of guys, Zion, maybe not LeBron at this point in his career, but Ja, like, you have a bunch of, Ja's hurt actually right now, but you have a bunch of players in the NBA who are, fringe all-stars or probably all-stars. You probably have a bunch of guys who can compete in this dunk competition, yet we're subjected to a bunch of no-name guys, a bunch of G League guys who are competing in this thing, and, I think it kind of hurts the brand of the NBA. Now, once again, I will say that's not the crap on Matt McClung. It's a feat in itself for him and his story and where he's come from, being in the G League, not getting, maybe not getting the right opportunity in the NBA to be able to show what he can do, but, with what he's been able to do in the dunk competition, it's a feat, and congrats to him. But it just kind of sucks to see, and some of the dunks that we're seeing are just like the Jaylen Brown dunk where he was trying to imitate the him blocking his eyes, and like, he didn't even block his eyes till he was on the ground. And I think the point of that dunk, I don't know for sure, but the pictures I saw, the guy who he was trying to imitate was in the air with his eyes covered while he was about to dunk, and Jaylen Brown didn't even cover his eyes till he hit the ground. I don't know, man. And obviously, like, I can dunk, but I can't do any, like, extravagant dunks like that. So, I'm speaking from a limited level of, competence on the issue, but, I think something definitely needs to be done about the dunk competition. And then the game. The Eastern All-Stars scored 50 points in every quarter of the All-Star game. They ended with 211 points, and I think they won like 211 to like 180 against the West. And that was interesting to me about that, because they had mentioned early on in the game how the Eastern All-Stars were not only younger, but they were the smaller team. You had Braun, you had AD, you had Jokic, you had some older players on the Western side. On the Western team, and then you got a bunch of young guys: Tyrese Maxey, Tyrese Halliburton, Jaylen Brown, what is his name? Jason Tatum, like a bunch of young guys, young NBA All-Stars on the Eastern side. And, they seem to have more youth and more energy during the game too. But, 211, they set a new record, but 211 to 180, that is absolutely ridiculous. There seems to be absolutely no competitiveness in the All-Star game. If you guys watch the game, you guys let me know what your comments about the All-Star game was. Obviously, I love the hell out of NBA basketball, so I'm going to watch anything that has NBA basketball, like AllStar Weekend, the finals, the playoffs. Like, I watch it all. Like, I love it. And obviously, my Thunder are good now, so I like watching them as well. But I watched a ton of basketball, NBA basketball. I love basketball so much, so I was going to watch the game anyway. But it is kind of boring just to watch them, not play defense, to watch them just chuck up shots. And, the shot making is amazing. The shot making in the NBA these days is absolutely incredible. So that's really cool to watch Dame, Curry, just all these guys throw up some crazy shots. Tyrese Halliburton hit some crazy shots. Like, that's really cool to see, but it would be even more cool if we saw some of the best players in the world who don't always get to compete against each other. And obviously, you're on your break. Like, this is supposed to be the break for your season, which is kind of interesting. When else would you do the All-Star game if you didn't do it now? You can't. I don't know if participation would be even less if they did it after the season. So I commend the NBA for finding a way to make it work to where all the guys will participate. Because if you look at the Pro Bowl in the NFL, there's a lot of guys who don't even compete in the Pro Bowl because it's towards the end of the season. Their bodies are beat up. They haven't had any time off. This is their first time off. Like, why would I want to spend it doing more football stuff? I don't know. But, on the NBA side of things, I love watching the games, but it would be something if we could see the best players in the world compete against each other at the highest level, in this All-Star game. That's the only time we ever get to see them all on the same court at the same time. I think something needs to be done in order to see if it can work see how it can work. I mean, we saw the NFL, they've gone to flag football. They do flag football now and bunch of different skills challenges and games. The Pro Bowl games is what they're called now, which I think is a better format just based off how the game was being played. I'm sure fans would love to find a way to get back to the game being played in pads and see how they can make it maybe a little competitive. But it's all about injury prevention. All these guys don't want to get hurt, which is 1000%, understandable. This game, you might be making a little money by making the Pro Bowl or making the NBA All-Star game, but you're not making a bulk of your money. And when a bulk of your money is coming from the season and what you do during the season, a lot of guys are going to prioritize that. So I'm never going to fault them for that, but it would be awesome as a fan of the product if they could find a way to make it interesting for the fans. That would be amazing. One more thing I wanted to talk about on AllStar Weekend was Steph Curry and Sabrina Ionescu. They did a 3-point challenge, Steph Curry versus Sabrina. Steph Curry won by 3, but I think this is an amazing showing for women's basketball. Sabrina is a great ambassador for the game of women's basketball, but women's basketball in specific. She put on a show. She put up 26, which is the exact same number that Dame won with in the 3-point competition. So kudos to her. Kudos for her, like shooting her shot in the first place, like saying, hey, I would love to, shoot against Steph Curry. I think that I can compete. She went out there, she competed, she pushed him to the edge. If Curry didn't hit two or three of his last couple shots, he would have lost. So I thought it was an amazing showing for Sabrina Ionescu and the WNBA in a whole. Hopefully next year they can continue this. What I would like to see next year is I would love for them to do, Curry, if he wants to try to, keep his crown, sure, they can do that, or bring in another 3-point shooter. But I would love to see Caitlin Clark following her rookie season in the WNBA, because I believe she's a senior now at Iowa. Her rookie season, I think, would be next year. This summer, her rookie season will be this coming summer in the WNBA, and then lead that over into the NBA All-Star game the next coming winter. That would be amazing. Caitlin Clark versus Steph Curry, or Caitlin Clark versus somebody. We all know she can shoot the heck out of the basketball, so that would be something that I would 100% be tapped in and love to see. Man, I hope this continues. I hope we're able to see. I don't know. I don't know where they could take it. I don't know what they could potentially do for it, but I know it's very good for women's basketball. It's very good for women's sports. And, I'm very excited that Sabrina shot her shot. She got her opportunity and she showed out. She didn't win. Obviously, we know Steph Curry is the best shooter ever in the history of the world. Like Steph Curry, he's that guy. But for Sabrina to come and shoot from the men's arc, not the women's arc. She did shoot a women's ball, which is understandable, but she shot from the men's 3-point line, which is very commendable. I respect the hell out of that. And she showed out. And she proved that given the right not even given the right she's proved that they can compete. I'm not even going to say any of that. She proved that they can compete at the highest level against men or women. And congrats to her in a win or a L. It's a W for the WNBA because you were on the biggest stage. You showed out, and you showed out for the women in the WNBA and the women in women's sports. So congrats to Sabrina Ionescu. Congrats to the WNBA. Congrats to Steph on winning. And that was really cool to see. Really, really cool to see. EA Sports announced that NCAA Football is dropping this summer. I'm super excited for that. I wish it would have came out when I was still in college so that I could utilize myself as a player on the game. That would have been really cool to see. I remember, and I don't know if I've talked about this on my show, but I didn't even know what FCS football was when I was growing up. So I just knew FBS Power 5, I knew D2, I knew NAIA, I knew D3, but I didn't even know about FCS until I got my FCS offer. But I remember now that some of my friends have mentioned it, I used to always compete against the FCS teams early on in the season because they have the FCS East, the FCS North, FCS West. Now, I don't know if FCS teams are going to be in the EA Sports college football game. I hope they are because I would for sure be using the FCS schools, but I don't know if they're going to be in the game. So that's an interesting thing. And there's been some confusion on if there are because Gardner Webb posted on their page kind of signaling that they may be on the game. Portland State posted something as well. It'd be nice if EA Sports would release something. I think they might have released something. It's been speculated that FCS teams aren't going to be on the game, which sucks, but understandable as well. That adds a whole different layer of programming that they most likely have to do in order to add all the FCS schools along with all the FBS schools. And then also along those lines, if you add FCS schools, then do you add D2 schools? Then do you add D3 schools? Then do you add all the NAIA schools? I think it's a slippery slope, and I think probably on the EA Sports side of things, they're probably like, look, we just got the game back. Like, can we at least like be happy with that? Which we are. I'm very happy that we have the game. I'm very happy that NCAA football is coming back. I mean, the next question about it though is like, is this game going to be like the old NCAA, which was amazing? NCAA 14 is one of the best football games I've ever played. Or is it going to be more like Madden? Because Madden gameplay is kind of iffy sometimes. I remember the NCAA gameplay was amazing. Like the fluidness of their movement, the fluidness of the spins, the jukes, just everything about the game was just amazing. The My Career mode where you go to college, you get your offers, all that. I mean, NCAA 14 is an amazing game. I hope they keep the same type of things that they had on NCAA 14 for NCAA 25. Obviously, better technology now than there was 10 years ago. So that's something to take into account. But I hope they don't mess up the game and mess up the fluidity and all that stuff. Like, that was something that I really loved about NCAA. And obviously, you guys have heard me talk about Madden. I love Madden. But like I said earlier, there's levels. NCAA was a different game. And there's a reason that people have been clamoring to get this game back for 10 years now. So excuse me. I'll be excited to see that. Hopefully we get some news about FCS teams. Obviously, like I mentioned, I heard that there aren't FCS teams on the game, which will be fine. People are happy to get the game. But if there are FCS teams, that would be amazing. And some of these teams have kind of, been leading us to that. But I haven't got any confirmation on if there are any FCS teams on it or not. But, the return of EA Sports college football is going to be amazing. EA Sports NCAA football dropping this summer. The full reveal is coming in May. I had the video linked to the game, but I'm not going to show that. But, man, you guys let me know in the comments how you guys feel about EA Sports. If you guys ever played the original NCAA games, if you guys are excited about this game coming back, what are your feelings about FCS teams being on it? Do you think if FCS teams are on it that they need D2, D3, NAIA? Do you think they just leave the FCS teams off? Tell me what you guys think, and leave your comments in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much. Draft season. The NFL Combine is coming February 26th to March 4th. I believe February 26th, that's going to start next week. So that should be next Monday. The draft will be the Combine will be starting. There's a lot of good players coming out. Jaden Daniels, Drake May, JJ McCarthy, Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, Bo Nix. Those are just the quarterbacks, though. I think it's a really good quarterback class this year. A lot of names to choose from. Obviously, there's some that rank higher than others, like Caleb Williams, JJ McCarthy, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. Those guys are towards the top of that class. But then you go to running backs, and I'm only doing skill positions. There was a lot of players. I am only going to list the skill player positions that I'm going to be paying attention to, skill players that I want to see what they do during the Combine, see how they test. Running backs, Trey Benson, Florida State, Braylon Allen, that's Wisconsin, Blake Corum, obviously Michigan, Bucky Irvin from Oregon. You got Isaiah Davis from South Dakota State. I'm really interested in seeing how he tests. I think he's one of the better backs in the country. I've said that before, and I will continue to say that. I'm very interested to see how he turns out and see how his numbers come out, because I think he's going to be a really good back in the NFL. Receivers, you got Keon Coleman, Troy Franklin, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Brian Thomas Jr., you got Xavier Worthy, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Xavier Legette from South Carolina. But Keon Coleman, Florida State, Troy Franklin, Oregon, Malik Neighbors, LSU, Rome Odunze, Washington, Brian Thomas, LSU, Xavier Worthy, Texas, Marvin Harrison, Ohio State, and then Xavier Legette from South Carolina. So those are just some of the players that I'll be watching during Combine season. What are some of the FBS or FCS players that you guys are paying attention to during Combine season? I know it's an exciting time. I know a bunch of people are paying attention to their NFL teams. You want to see who your guys get, who you guys pick up, see who's going to be leading you guys into the future. I know a lot of people particularly are going to be tapped into these quarterbacks. I think it's one of the bigger classes that we've had in the last couple of years. A lot of big names. I don't really know. Obviously, Caleb Williams is the number one guy, but then you have Drake May, JJ McCarthy. I think JJ McCarthy has been getting a lot of steam as of late. A lot of people are, seeing his abilities and seeing what he can do and are, kind of projecting him as being maybe a better NFL player than people might have initially thought. Obviously, he just won a national championship. I think he was like 27-1 during his college career, so he knows how to win. I know he's a smaller guy, so that might play a part into all of it, but it's going to be interesting. And then Drake May, I've been seeing some things about, a lot of people aren't so sold on Drake May as they were maybe a year ago or as they were maybe even a couple months ago. So, and then obviously you have Jaden Daniels, who threw it all over the place, ran all over the place, but for some reason, he's not the 1, 2. I mean, I think I've seen him maybe at 2 or 3 in terms of quarterbacks going off the board, 2 or 3. But one would think maybe that a Heisman winner should be number 1 overall. I mean, he was the best player in college football, but obviously you're drafting somebody based off abilities, not based off of their success they've had. I think success plays a small part into it, but you're drafting them based off of traits. So throwing strength, accuracy, footwork, how you read a defense, what's going on in your head pre-snap, post-snap, like all those things are what they're being judged off of. So they think Caleb Williams based off of arm talent, and I think solely based off of arm talent. That's why Caleb Williams is the guy, because we've seen him make some crazy throws and we've seen him do it on the run. And that seems to be the standard at quarterback these days, is quarterbacks that can extend plays and make things happen with their legs, as well as make all the off-platform throws with their arm. That's what people are looking for, and that's what Drake May and Caleb Williams do a lot of. So I think that's why those guys are projected so highly. I hope that they have a lot of success in the league. I don't know how many of these guys are going to run, or how many of these guys are even going to do all of the testing. I know a lot of times there's not a lot of guys who do all the testing or all the numbers, so it'll be interesting to see what some of those guys do and what some of those guys don't. I'm sure probably most, if not all of them, will throw, just speaking on the quarterbacks. So we'll see. We'll see. It's going to be interesting, but, draft season is always a fun time. You got the combine and then the draft a few months after, so you're going to get to see all the top names who are going to be entering the NFL in the combine starting next week on February 26th. So you guys tap in, but also you guys leave a comment. Let me know who you guys are paying attention to. Let me know who you guys like, and let me know what you guys' thoughts about NFL draft season happening. Okay, I wanted to chime in and tell you the best thing I saw last week. I'm going to play the clip right now.
I think she should have shot from the women's line. She should have shot from the women's line. That would have been a fair contest. I still root for Sabrina.
We all are rooting for Sabrina.
No.
This is not
She should have shot from the three-point line that the women shoot from.
Why are you putting those boundaries on her?
That's not a boundary. That's what the game is.
She wanted to shoot.
They have a smaller ball, don't they?
She shot a WNBA ball.
WNBA ball is smaller.
She shot with the WNBA
ball. Yeah, but
she
should have shot from the line. There's a women's tee in golf and there's a men's tee for a reason.
No. She a shooter shoot. Isn't that what you said?
Yeah, but they shoot from where they shoot from.
No.
Thank you.
No.
Sabrina,
good job, Sabrina. No, don't let any man put boundaries on you like him.
Well, then give him a regular ball then.
Don't let any man put boundaries on you.
Give him a regular ball then. It's not fair. I disagree.
Okay, Kenny Smith's comments about Sabrina Ionescu needing to shoot on a women's goal were just so wrong, and this is the worst thing I saw last week, on Saturday. Kenny Smith was all over the place, first off, during the broadcast on TNT for the AllStar game. For AllStar Weekend. This was on Friday, so he was all over the place on Friday during the AllStar Weekend. But I just thought his comments following the shooting competition with her and Steph were just kind of, a little insensitive, man. Like, he's talking about she needs to shoot on a women's goal. He would have preferred her to shoot on from the women's line, and it's like, well, why would she do that? Like, that would just give people another reason. If she would have won shooting from the women's goal, people would have said, oh, like, she only won because she shot from the women's goal. Or if she would have won even on Friday shooting from the men's hoop, people would have said, oh, she only won because she's shooting a women's ball. Well, she shoots a women's ball during her season. She shoots a women's ball during the offseason. Why would she shoot a men's ball? But that's besides the point, because that's not what he said. He said she should have shot from the women's arc, and I disagree with that. It would have been fine if she would have shot from the women's arc, but I respect her wanting to go to the men's arc and, shoot from the men's three-point line and, kind of, show them that, like, despite the small differences in the ball and the small differences in where our line is, I can still shoot as well as you. And I think she proved that. Obviously, we hold Steph Curry in high regard. I think Sabrina is held in high regard as well. She's a great WNBA player. She had a great college career and she's had a great WNBA career. And obviously she can shoot the hell out of the ball. Why would you want to put limiters on her? There's people already wanting to put limits on women in sports for a various number of reasons. There's already people trying to put, caps on what they can and can't do. So why would you, after she put on a great showing, why would you show up and then say she should have shot from the women's line? Why? And I just think there was no point in him saying that, because she obviously demonstrated that she could shoot from the men's line. Like, she almost won. She tied Dame Lillard, who won the three-point competition, the real three-point competition. She had 26. He had 26. So I don't know why you said she should have shot from the women's line when she just, and like, Kenny said this immediately after the competition had ended. Like, I think it was right after Curry had finished. He made a comment about, she should have shot from the women's line. Why? Like, there's no need for those comments. There's no need for you to say these things. Like, she is doing something groundbreaking. She is doing something that is going to revolutionize the sport. Maybe, if they continue this going on, who knows what this could do for the WNBA. This could build the brand of the WNBA. And in the midst of her trying to do that, you just shot her down and shot the WNBA down by trying to, give her a reason as to make it easier on her. Or, I really don't. The thing about it is, I don't know why he felt the need to say what he said. I don't know why he felt the need to comment on the women's arc when she demonstrated that she could shoot from the men's arc. I don't know why he felt he needed to say it. I don't know why he felt like his comments were necessary. I think they were a little bit, insensitive to what was going on and what Sabrina was attempting to do for the WNBA. I think it was very insensitive to the women. I think it was very insensitive to the WNBA itself. And I think it was insensitive to Sabrina, because if she wanted to shoot from the women's three-point line, she would have shot from the women's three-point line. She decided to shoot from the men's three-point line, so you should respect that decision and respect her performance that she put on. There should be no other comments being had after that three-point competition other than, dang, that was awesome. Like, you can talk about the performance. Maybe she shot the ball bad, but she didn't shoot the ball bad. She shot the ball well. So all we need to be talking about is how freaking awesome it was that Steph Curry just competed with Sabrina Ionescu in a three-point competition, and she almost won. Like, how good is that for women's sports? How good is that for women's basketball? That's what we need to be highlighting, because people have lamented the pay wage gap in between the WNBA and the NBA, which it's deserved. The WNBA doesn't make as much money as the NBA. That's fine. But, this could potentially be something that could help raise that by raising awareness for the WNBA, bringing more fans to the WNBA. And what Kenny did with his comments is he just kind of shot that down in front of a national audience. Like, he just made that comment in front of a national audience, trying to demean what she just did. And there should be none of that being had. What she just did was absolutely amazing. What she was able to accomplish has been absolutely amazing. Being able to get her at AllStar Weekend to compete against the best shooter in the history of the NBA is absolutely amazing and should be treated as such. So, I just have a problem with what Kenny said. I love Kenny. I love NBA Today. Not NBA Today. I can't even remember what the show is, but the TNT basketball show. You guys know what I'm talking about. I love that show to death. I love Kenny, Chuck, Earl. Earl. Why does Earl seem wrong? Ernie. Kenny, Chuck, Ernie, and Shaq. I love them to death. Amazing show. But I think what Kenny said was just kind of off, and he should have left that in the notes. That didn't need to be said. And hopefully he's learned from that, and hopefully some people have spoke to him about, how wrong those comments were and how hurtful to the women's game, or to just the moment that was Sabrina and Steph, how hurtful that comment was to the moment. You're on the national broadcast. You're speaking to the national audience. You're supposed to highlight how amazing this is. You're supposed to highlight just how there's a women and men's player competing against each other on the same playing field, and it was just an amazing show. I'm sure the fans loved it. It's great for the WNBA. Just we didn't need that. We didn't need that. And you guys let me know what you guys thought about it. If you guys heard it during the game, or if you guys felt a way about it, let me know in the comment section below. We're gonna get back to some FCS football real quick. FCS teams this is from per FCS Football Central. FCS football teams that exceeded expectations in 2023. First team, we got Albany, who actually just lost their quarterback, Reese Poffenberger. I'm going to be dropping a breakdown on him later this week, so be on the lookout for that. his arm is absolutely crazy. Like the deep throws he throws on some of the platforms. We were just talking about Caleb Williams and Drake May off-platform throws. This dude, Reese Puffenberger, is absolutely ridiculous. He's at Miami now. I know they just got Cam Ward, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But please go tap into that breakdown later this week. That'll be dropping on Thursday. Anyway, UAlbany, 11-4 this past season, 7-4 in the CAA. They were projected to finish 11th in the conference, Coastal Atlantic Athletic Conference, and they won their first CAA championship in school history, and they also had a new program record of 11 wins. So congrats to UAlbany. I remember watching them in that playoff game against Idaho. It was an amazing game. Like I said, Reese Puffenberger absolutely killed it. Braylon Evans, I think their receiver name is, he actually had a great game, and they ended up getting beat down by South Dakota State the next week. But really good season for them. It's good to see them have some success in the CAA. Really good job for them. Next, you have South Dakota, 10-3, 7-1 in the Missouri Valley. They finished 3-8 in the 2022 season, and they ended up finishing number 4 in the Stats Perform top 25 at the end of the season. So really good turnaround for them, being 3-8 last year and finishing with a 10-3 record, 7-1 in the Missouri Valley. They probably would have been competing for that Missouri Valley championship had everybody in the conference not lost to South Dakota State. So really good for them. It'll be interesting to see how they carry over to next year, but good for South Dakota. Next is Lafayette. They are 9-3 and 5-1 in the Patriot League. They were projected to finish 4th in the Patriot League, and they won their first Patriot League title since 2013. They won 9 games for the first time since 1981, and their running back, Jamar Curtis, he's an absolute dog. I think he had 4 touchdowns in their Chattanooga game that I watched. He had an amazing performance. They obviously lost that game. They started off, no. Lafayette versus Delaware. Lafayette played Delaware. I can't remember who Delaware had beat, but I remember Montana was going to play Delaware. So I watched the Lafayette-Delaware game and broke that game down. You guys can go check that out on my channel. But Lafayette against Delaware, they got off to a hot start against Delaware, and Delaware was down by like 2 or 3 touchdowns. But then, Lafayette started turning over the ball. Delaware was getting going, and Delaware ended up winning the game. But I remember watching Jamar Curtis, and he had an amazing game. He ended the season with 1,460 yards and 17 total touchdowns. So really good for them, really good for Lafayette to turn their season around. We'll see how their success goes next year. I honestly, before I had watched the Lafayette versus Delaware game, I had no idea about Lafayette. I knew nothing about them. So it was awesome to be able to see another team in the playoffs, be able to, make a name for themselves, potentially have a really good season, win a league title. It's really good to see those stories in the FCS, especially since, a lot of the blue bloods, a lot of the big names in the division have been leaving. So for some of these lower tier schools to be able to come up and see some success is very awesome to see. Next, we got Western Carolina, who started off the season hot, but finished the season 7-4, 5-3 in the SoCon. They actually play Montana in 2024, so that's going to be a game I'm going to be interested to see since they were one of the better teams last year. Obviously, they finished off rough. I think injuries had to play a big part in that, and then falling off. I think maybe their quarterback or some of their more important players on their team had got hurt. But they started the season 5-1. They finished season with 7 wins for the first time since 2017. So really good for Western Carolina. Good season for them. Excited to see how they turn out next year. It's going to be a good year. It's going to be exciting to see them play against Montana, but good for them to turn it around from a year ago to be good this year. Eastern Illinois, 8-3 this year, 4-2 in the Big South OVC, because I think they're in like a merged conference where they play against each other for an AQ, an automatic qualifying spot. But they were projected to finish 8th in the Big South /OVC. They were 2-9 in 2022. Most wins, 8 since 2013. And they finished 24 in the AFCA coaches poll. So really good for Eastern Illinois. I don't think they made the playoffs. I believe they did not make the playoffs. They were one of those bubble teams. But a really good year for them. Hopefully they're able to capitalize on this and build on it for next year and have a great year. Next on teams that exceeded expectations in 2023. And this is a list of 7 teams. This is our 6th team. We got Montana, 13-2, 7-1 in the Big Sky. First Big Sky title since 2009. First championship appearance since 2009. They were projected to finish 6th in the Big Sky preseason poll, and obviously they finished 1st. It was an amazing season for Montana. I don't have to go down Montana. You guys know I've talked about Montana for a long time, but I think they exceeded expectations not only for the media people, but also for the coaches. The coaches, I think that was the preseason poll. That might have been the preseason coaches poll or the media poll. I know both of them had them pretty low. And then obviously, fans. I mean, like, fans were very happy to see Montana. I mean, I don't think fans had high expectations for Montana going into last season. I think maybe 9-3 expectations, maybe 8-4 expectations. Well, no, they only played 11. So 8-3, 9-2. I think were the expectations that people had, maybe even lower. I don't think people had very high expectations because we had UC Davis, who was a fairly good team. Idaho, we had lost to Idaho in 2022. You got Montana State, who we lost to in 2022. Just a bunch of teams on the schedule late in the season that, Sacramento State, who we lost to in 2022 and 2021 and 19 and 18. Like, we hadn't beat Sac State in a minute. So just a lot of big games on the schedule that people were looking at preseason that, and obviously Clifton wasn't the starting quarterback. We didn't know what Clifton was going to do. We didn't know what our defense was going to do. We had no idea. But for Montana to finish 13-2 with a national championship appearance was amazing, and hopefully they're able to capitalize on that for next year. We got Nicholls State at 6-5, but their 6 wins were all conference wins. They were 6-0 in the Southland, so they were 3-8 in 2022. Their first conference title and playoff appearance since 2019, which is crazy that a team made the playoffs at 6-5. But when you look at their record, I mean, they were undefeated in conference, so that's all that matters. I gotta guess they probably played a lot of non-conference games, FBS games or bye games that they had to pay games to be able to make up for revenue in their athletic department that maybe they're missing in other parts of their athletic department. But that's interesting. 6-5 after a 3-8 season, but going undefeated in conference and winning the conference title. That's got to feel really good, but be very perplexing for the fans there. Like, we're 6-5, but we're conference champions. So very interesting, but that's kind of how the FCS goes, especially for some of those smaller conferences who have to play some of those games that you have to buy, that you have to pay for. That's what those are for. So super exciting from that standpoint of things. I'm going to get into fan questions now. First question is from Mitch Bond. He said, you should talk on how the transfer portal has really, I think, helped elevate the FCS, but give us your thoughts on it, of course. Well, if you guys have been tapped into this channel, I've given my thoughts on the transfer portal and what I think about it. I think it's ultimately good for college football, but the way it's regulated and the way it's used by some of the players is not smart. I think some players just use it in order to, find a situation that's better or different than the situation you're currently in, instead of maybe showing some loyalty or some wherewithal, some toughness to be able to, fight for that spot, earn that spot. I think it's making kids, I don't want to say soft, but it's giving kids an easy out if things don't turn out well for the place that they chose. Not the place that somebody else chose for you. You had schools coming after you. You had offers. Maybe you didn't have offers. Maybe you walked on. Maybe you've made a name for yourself. There's so many things that can go into it that can make it a different situation. But I think a lot of kids are using it to run from the grind. A lot of kids are using it to say, like, I think I'm ready to play, but the coach won't play me, so I'm going to go somewhere else where I know I can play. Well, maybe you're not ready to play. I've seen tons of guys transfer thinking that they're ready to play. They go to another place and they're just in the same spot they were at their current place. Maybe it's not the system. Maybe it's you. Maybe you need to look in the mirror. Maybe you need to work harder. Maybe you need to dedicate more time to the game. Maybe there's different things you need to do. Who knows? But I think it's causing a lot of guys to run from the grind. Now, with that, I have mentioned on other occasions also how, some situations just don't work out for guys. Things just don't always work out. Some guys get into situations that, aren't fruitful for them, for their career. The scheme just doesn't work out. The coaches and them don't get all along. The academics don't line up for what they want to do. I mean, there's many situations, but so there are positives to the transfer portal, and I think the positives outweigh the negatives that we see. I think some of those negatives can be worked out by, the NCAA creating legislation that says, like, if you transfer, you got to stay here for a certain amount of time. But it gets weird with that too, because as we've talked about earlier in this video, coaches can leave with no ramifications. They still get paid, all these things. Like, coaches leave all the time. So it's like, how are you going to tell a kid that, when you sign here, you have to stay here, but even if your coach leaves, you can't leave? I think it's a very hard thing to legislate. I think it's a very hard thing to judge off of. But the one thing I just don't like about the transfer portal is kids running from the grind. Anything else, I think the transfer portal is necessary because, some dudes do. Like, take Reese Puffenberger, for example. Took his team to the playoffs. Balled out. This is Albany. I'm talking about University of Albany. He's now at Miami. Balled out. He obviously has the ability to play at a higher level, but, he probably wasn't getting that attention coming out of high school, so he went to Albany. I think he's from Pittsburgh. I think he might be from Pennsylvania or New Hampshire. He's from somewhere in the Northeast. Took his offer to Albany, played well. He's now got schools looking at him who he thinks he would be a good fit at the FBS level. For him, if you have the opportunity to play at the FBS level, for sure go, bro. You're not running from the grind. You've showed that you have the ability. You've shown that you have the talent to play at a higher level. So go play at a higher level. Test your skills at the FBS level. Test your skills against this Power 5 competition and see how it turns out for you, bro. Like, now, a guy who's a backup and, hasn't got any burn and, just feels like he simply should be getting burned, but that doesn't align with what the coaches are seeing in practices and in the small time that you get in the games, I don't think you should transfer, because you're not transferring for reasons that are healthy, in my opinion. You're transferring because you want to run from the grind. You don't want to earn a spot. You want a spot given to you. Well, nothing is given in this world, man. And I feel like a lot of these young guys, I'm young too, so I'm talking about guys that are younger than me. I feel like a lot of these young guys want things given to them. They want to walk into somewhere and be the guy. And I've talked about this on many occasions. I thought I was the guy coming in Montana, but everybody was the guy in high school. Everybody was a 5-star, not a 5-star, we're at FCS level. So, but everybody was that guy at their high school. Everybody had crazy stats in high school. Everybody was, the man at their high school. Now you're coming to a campus where everybody was that guy. Everybody has a history of playing well. I mean, they wouldn't be here if they didn't have a history of playing well. So what are you going to do that sets yourself apart? Are you going to outwork these guys? Are you going to play better than these guys on the field? Are you going to outstudy these guys? All the things that it takes to be a good football player, all the things that it takes to be successful, are you willing to do those things? Once you go down a checklist of, am I working as hard as I possibly can be? Yes. Do I know the playbook better than anybody else? Yes. Do I know my assignments better than anybody else? Yes. How is my relationship with my coach? All these things that you go down to before you should get to the point to where you feel like you should transfer. Those are my thoughts on the transfer portal. I just think guys are running from the grind. I think it's needed because, situations don't always work out. And then obviously with coaches leaving, that's always hard on players, and players need somewhere to go. If the new coach comes in and wants to bring in a whole bunch of other guys, what are you supposed to say about the guys who have been there, So those are my thoughts. But in terms of FCS, the transfer portal 100% does elevate FCS football for sure. I mean, you can just look at the Montana program, bringing in Riley Wilson, bringing in Justin Ford, bringing in Omar, bringing in Trajan Cotton. There's been a bunch of guys that have helped the Montana program coming from FCS schools or coming from FBS schools, transferring down. I think it's amazing for FCS football. I think it helps FCS football out a ton by getting some of these drop downs from the FBS level. It's amazing. I love that part of it. I think it's been very fruitful. Now, one thing that becomes tricky is I think a lot of times when a lot of these Power 5 guys are transferring, they're hoping to at least go to another FBS school, or maybe even like a group of some FBS school, like maybe not Power 5 to Power 5, but they want to stay at the FBS level. I know a lot of guys, like, the FCS is kind of looked down on because it's looked down on as not D1 football. I hear people say that all the time. Like, people used to always ask me oh, they play real D1 football. Well, we play real D1 football too. We beat real D1 football teams all the time. We beat UW. I mean, there's North Dakota State has beat a ton of FBS schools. South Dakota State beat Colorado. Last year, Idaho beat Nevada. What's real D1 football? You tell me. That's just my little rant about that. But that used to piss me off when people would say that. But I can only imagine that players have the same feelings about about coming to the FCS level. They might look down on it. I think players from the FBS Power 5, Group of 5 level coming down to the FCS only benefits the FCS, but I understand on the player side of things that they might not want to come to the FCS. So, yes, Mitch, it does help the FCS. I think it does nothing but only elevate the FCS. I think it's amazing for the FCS, but also on the other side of things, I know how players see it. So, I understand that point of it. But thank you for your question, Mitch Bond. Hopefully I was able to answer it effectively, and we are going to the next one. Next question is from George Wyman. Who will the Montana Grizzlies play in the national championship next year? Man, I'm trying to think about this. I really think, and obviously I could be wrong about this, I really think North Dakota State's going to be the team to beat next year. I mean, just judging, I know I've mentioned that, they lost their offensive coordinator, they lost their head coach, but I think they're returning a lot of their starters from last year. I think they're returning a lot of players, and obviously the new coach is going to play a part into that, but I think it could be a North Dakota State-Montana national championship. I could be wrong. Who knows? I mean, we got a long way to go from that. A lot of changes need to happen until that point. But I think it could be a Montana-North Dakota State National Championship. I don't know. We'll see. But I think it most likely, if I had to pick a conference, I think it's going to be a Big Sky versus MVFC, Missouri Valley Conference championship. I could see a Big Sky versus Missouri Valley. Who knows? Maybe even a Big Sky versus Big Sky conference championship. I hesitate saying that because I don't know how good the Big Sky is going to be next year. Obviously, there's going to be some names. A team is going to come out on top because that's how football is played. There's a winner and there's a loser. But I don't know how competitive the conference is going to be next year. Like, I think there's going to be some drastic winners and losers in the conference. Like, I think there's going to be very obviously the good teams in the Big Sky Conference and the bad teams in the Big Sky Conference next year. I could be wrong. Hopefully there's more parity in the Big Sky Conference, but who knows? We will see. But I think it's going to be Big Sky versus Missouri Valley, and I think it might be North Dakota State. I think they're primed to have a good year. I think they feel like they might have come up short this year, not making it to the national championship, but we will see. Thank you for your question, Mr. Wyman. Eric Cardle says, how does Bobby get over the championship hump? 0-4. Man, you got to win, man. Like, I don't know. I think one thing that hurt us in the national championship was Clifton getting hurt. It seemed to really hamper his ability to be able to run. And there were so many times, and I know all you guys who've watched the game know this, there were so many times during that national championship where Clifton had the opportunity to run and he chose to stay back or waited too long to run to where there wasn't as much yardage to be had. We got to have consistent quarterback. You got to have consistent quarterback play to be able to win the national championship. You can't turn over the ball, which is what we did, unfortunately, coming out of that halftime. You got to capitalize on mistakes. Like, there's a couple things that the Griz didn't do in that national championship. You got to win the turnover battle. They did not do that. You have to capitalize on the other team's mistakes. They did not do that. And you have to be able to run the ball effectively no matter what. You have to be able to run the ball effectively, and Montana could not do that during the national championship. So there's just a few things that they were missing on in that game that, they did well all year. They didn't turn over the ball a lot last year during the bulk of the season, and they had 2 turnovers in the national championship. They did capitalize on people's mistakes for the most part, and they didn't do that in the national championship. And then our quarterback play, like, our quarterback was hurt. He couldn't do what he had done well all year, which is run the ball. So I think Coach Houck was at a disadvantage. It just sucks that this is the way it turned out for him, because that was my fear when we won the semifinals, was like, it's going to be amazing if Houck wins, and if Montana wins, if we win this, it's going to be amazing. But then, like, on the other hand of things, it's going to really suck if he loses and then he becomes 0-4, and then that's just another thing to talk about with Coach Houck, because Coach Houck is an amazing coach. He's seen all the success, coaches of the years, Big Sky Conference titles, like all of it. He's done it all except win a national championship, and he's 0-4 in that game. And part of me thinks that's why he returned, was because he potentially wants to get that one in the column of national championships. I think if he wins the national championship, he's done. I think if he would have won the national championship this year, he would have retired, or at least, been done for a year or went somewhere else. I don't know, but I seriously think that that national championship, because I've talked about multiple times on this show, Houck cares about his legacy. He cares about how he's viewed in the history of Montana sports. He cares about how he's viewed in the history of Montana football. He has the utmost respect for Montana football. He cares about it a lot. And, for him not to be able to have a national championship on his record, I know that affects him. So, I don't know how he gets over the championship hump. Obviously, the answer is you got to win, but the question then becomes, how do you win? I think we just got to do what we were able to do all year last year, do it for one more game, and we come out on top. Unfortunately, they were unable to. Next question is from Tristan Sidebottom Flint, my old coworker at Costco. Hey, Tristan, thank you for your question. She says, what do you think about the Pac-12 sitch? My son goes to OSU, and I'm trying to understand it. Also Griz legends, or former Griz. What are they doing now? I know Dan Carter and Jayton Simpson, both solid guys. I think I gave most of my thoughts about the Pac-12 situation last week, so I would refer you to my video last week. We talked about how somebody asked me a question about the Pac-12 or the Pac-2 as it stands now in the Mountain West Conference. I think they're going to have to merge. I don't see any other way that the Pac-12 can, the Pac-12 is dead, so I don't know how any other way they're going to survive in a Power 5 conference. I mean, they're not in a Power 5 conference anymore, so I think the Mountain West and the Pac-2 have to merge. Oregon State and Washington State, I think they have to go do something with the Mountain West. I know they're playing games against the Mountain West this season, I believe, for the 2024 season, but going forward, once their contract is up, where do they go? I have no idea. I don't know, man. I think something definitely needs to be done in order to help these schools out. We were talking about it this weekend with somebody, and obviously it was the contract that they had signed that was what led them to was what led all these teams to want to leave the Pac-12. Their TV deal wasn't a very favorable TV deal. I think it was like an ad share deal or something to where they weren't getting the biggest piece of the pie, is what my understanding of that Pac-12 TV deal was, that led all these teams to leave. But I don't know, man. The Pac-12, the Pac-2 as it stands now is in a definite weird situation. We're going to see how it turns out going forward. I think something has to be done. Who knows? Something has to be done. I think that the Pac-12 and Mountain West are going to have to merge. Those are my thoughts. That is what I think. I think that's going to have to happen in some way, form, or fashion. I don't see any other way. I mean, what is the Pac-2 going to do? Come to the Big Sky? I mean, we'd love it. That'd be good for the Big Sky. But, I mean, I don't think they would want to do that. What are they going to do? Go to the Missouri Valley? I think that's kind of far for travel for them. The Big 12, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I think the Mountain West is the only, geographically, for both of those schools who are in the high Pacific Northwest, and being in Oregon State and, Washington State. I think they got to go to the Mountain West just for travel and to make things easier on them. That's probably why they're playing against some Mountain West schools this season, to test it out and see how it turns out for them. But who knows? Something's gonna have to happen. Next question from Mike Kinsella. I'd like to know your opinion on the pattern of bringing in constantly fifth-year senior quarterbacks who are only available for one season versus bringing in a good younger quarterback like Ayat and developing him. I think it's kind of a twofold answer, because obviously they're recruiting young talent. They would love for a young quarterback to come in. I think that's why Ayat was the backup for a majority of the second half of the season last year, because they wanted him to be able to learn from Clifton. They think he's the guy. So I do think we're seeing that now. But also, I'll say this. At the FCS level, it's very hard. I mean, finding a quarterback at any level is hard, especially at the FCS level. Being a quarterback in college football is very difficult. You have to be able to command the whole offense. You got to be able to deliver the ball where it needs to be. You got to be a leader. I mean, there's so many things that you have to do well as a quarterback in college football. I think it's just hard to find a guy. And, with the advent of the transfer portal, you're able to go get guys that have been through a college system, that have seen college plays, that have seen college defenses. If you feel like you're right there, you're just missing that piece at quarterback. I think that's why we've seen so many years of us going to get quarterbacks. But if you remember, Cam was a transfer portal guy, but he came here as a sophomore. So Cam really learned under Dalton and then had a year as a starter his senior year. But Cam wasn't a transfer portal. I mean, obviously he transferred, but he wasn't a fifth senior guy. Now, obviously Lucas Johnson last year, fifth senior guy. Dalton Sneed was like a 2-year type guy. And then you got Clifton McDowell this year, who's like a 2-year guy. So I think the last couple years, that's what we've been seeing with the Griz. But I think that boils down to it just being hard to find quarterbacks. I mean, it's really hard to find a quarterback out here. It's far hard to find a guy that can command an offense, a guy that can call plays, a guy that can deliver the ball effectively. I mean, it's hard to do those things at a high level, college or at the professional level. So I think that's why it is. And that also speaks to you have to have the right type of coaching staff to be able to develop these guys. Obviously, we had Chris. A lot of people thought Chris Brown was going to be the guy. He didn't quite turn out how everybody thought he would turn out, but he was somebody who they were trying to develop. He stayed behind Cam. He got his opportunities. He did fine, but I mean, he just didn't turn out. So I think, one, it's hard to develop guys. Two, it's hard to find guys. And three, it's just kind of easy if you feel like your team is right there. It's just kind of easy to go get a guy from the transfer portal who will get the job done and you hope can get you over the hump. Obviously, if you look at the teams who win, I don't think that's usually how it works. It's usually the teams that develop a guy that win. But I think this is just something a lot of the coaches are filling out in the early days of this transfer portal, in the early years of this transfer portal stuff. They might be finding out. Maybe if you look at the numbers, you'll find out that bringing in a fifth-year guy doesn't always work the best. Maybe it works to let a guy fail, but everybody wants success now. Everybody wants to win now. I mean, these donors, these boosters, all these people giving all this money, they don't want to wait 2-3 years for you to develop a guy. They want to win now. So I feel like you're battling a bunch of different things when you're dealing with this, and I think it becomes interesting when, you have a lot of things pulling at you, a lot of different things pulling at you, and you're trying to make a decision based on what would be the best for your team. But I think it really boils down to people want to win now. So why would we wait to develop a guy who may not be ready for the next 2 or 3 years when we can go get a guy who might be ready right now and might be able to get us a win and get us a championship right now? I mean, outside of the national championship, fans have been clamoring for us to beat the Cats. I mean, and we beat them in 2021, but fans have been clamoring for us to beat the Cats, to win a Big Sky title, to go to the national championship and win a national championship. We didn't win a national championship, but bring in a fifth-year guy, won a Big Sky title, beat the Cats, and were massively successful this year. Made it to a national championship. Like, all these things that all the fans want, like, we did it this year outside of winning that last game. So I think it just boils down to people wanting to win now and not wanting to wait. And that would be my only answer for that. Like, people just don't have patience. People don't want to wait for success. People want success now, and that's what it boils down to, man. Thank you for your question, Mike Kinsella. I appreciate you. She said, your opinion on OU leaving the Big 12. Well, Amanda, I've never really been an OU fan. I'm a Longhorn fan. This is not Longhorns gear. This is actually Montana gear. Quarterback Club Griz. You see it, RTD. So I am wearing burnt orange like I'm a Longhorn fan, which I am a Longhorn fan, but I'm not an OU fan, so I never really cared about OU leaving leaving the Big 12 anyway. The only thing that makes me mad about OU leaving the Big 12 is that they're not taking Oklahoma State with them, and they have no plans, or I don't think right now they have any plans to continue playing Bedlam. That is one of my favorite college football games every year, is Bedlam. I mean, everybody loves Bedlam. Everybody loves OU versus Oklahoma State. It's a great game. It's a staple game in Oklahoma. Everybody picks sides. Obviously, I never pick sides. The only time I ever picked sides is when our brother was at Oklahoma State. So I would always root for Oklahoma State. And I remember the year that I got to watch Tyreek Hill beat them in Norman. Not just Tyreek Hill, but Tyreek Hill was on Oklahoma State the year that I watched them beat OU in overtime. And it was an amazing game, but I don't really have any feelings about it. I don't really have an opinion about it, Amanda. Like, good for them. I mean, obviously it's a money decision. OU brings in a lot of money. OU as a football school brings in a lot of money. So obviously they're going to the SEC where football is king. But I don't know. I think they could have decent success in the SEC, but I think it's going to be an uphill battle for them every year. You're playing against the best teams in college football, the Alabamas, the Georgias, the LSUs, the Floridas. All those best schools are down in the South, and you just put yourself right in the middle of it. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do. I don't really have a strong opinion about them leaving the Big 12. I don't really care for it. The only reason I'm disappointed about them leaving the Big 12 is because they don't get to play Oklahoma State anymore. So that's the one thing that just disappoints me about that. But thank you for your question, Amanda. I appreciate it a lot. In your opinion, who do you think will be the next 37, and who do you think the dark horse is to win the Big Sky in the 24-25 season? So first question, who do I think will be the next 37? Who do I think will be the next 37? Well, we got to think about Montana guys on the defense. You got Jackson Lee. You got linebackers, they're all gone. D-line, like corners. Trevin Gradney, I could see Trevin Gradney getting the number 37. Who has it right now? Levi Janicaro. I could see Trevin Gradney getting 37. As far as defense goes, that's it. I think there's been one offensive 37 in the history of 37, but I think if there was ever going to be a time where an offensive guy got 37, personally, I think Junior should get number 37. I think he's done everything he has to do to be able to show success to be able to show he's earned it. And if anybody as an offensive player was ever deserving of number 37, I think it's Junior Bergen. That would be my vote. Obviously, I don't get a vote. I'm not a Montana guy. I mean, nobody gets an opinion. It's Levi's choice. Levi Janicaro gets the option to pick who he wants, but it would be amazing if he gave that to Junior. If not Junior, I could definitely see Trevin getting it, but I'm trying to think about other Montana guys who are like staple guys, but also I've heard that they would prefer 37 go to somebody who's fairly younger. Junior is going to be a senior, Trevin's going to be a senior, so I think they're kind of tired of it going to somebody who's just going to wear it for a year and then pass it to the next guy. I think they want somebody to kind of grow with the number, and I think that's what they're trying to do with it going forward. I think that's what Hawks wanted to do with it for the last couple of years. We'll see. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see who gets number 37. My vote would be Trevin or Junior. Obviously, it's Levi's decision. I don't know, though. I don't know. We'll have to see. It's going to be very interesting. But you guys let me know who you think should get it. If you guys can think of any Montana guys defensively or offensively who could get it, who you guys think should get it, who you guys think is deserving of it, and if you guys think it should go to a younger guy or you guys think it should keep going the way it's been going. You guys let me know in the comments. Okay, and then who do you think the dark horse is to win the Big Sky in 24-25? Dark horse? This one's going to really be crazy. I could see Northern Arizona being a dark horse to win the Big Sky. I'm pretty sure they let their head coach go, if I'm not mistaken, so they're going to be bringing in a new head coach. But NAU was they finished 4th or 5th in the Big Sky Conference. And obviously when you think of NAU, you don't think of success immediately. I know they were fairly successful when I first got there with Case Cookis and Emmanuel Butler. But they haven't had success in the last maybe 5 or 6 years, 7 years. But they're my dark horse for sure. They showed great flashes last year. Obviously, they gave Montana their only loss of the season. So they're a team to watch, and they finished fairly well in the conference. I think how many conference games are there? 7? I think they were 5, 7. No, there's 8. I think they were 5-3 in conference. So that's something that I'm definitely paying attention to. Northern Arizona, see if they're able to capitalize on what they did last year. It's going to be interesting to see. They're a very good football team. They played hard. They were able to push almost everybody to the limit. I don't think they were an easy out for anybody, and that's usually a sign of a team that is on the up and up. And I think Northern Arizona is definitely on the up and up. They are my dark horse to win the Big Sky in 24-25. So be on the lookout for Northern Arizona. It'll be interesting to see at quarterback. They got Daniel Craig Britt, who was at Montana, originally transferred to Northern Arizona. It'll be interesting to see how he plays. I know he got a little bit of burn against Montana State late in the season. I think he had a couple touchdowns, maybe a throwing touchdown, but that's who I'm paying attention to as my dark horse to win the Big Sky in 24-25. So thank you for asking that question, Matthew Gow. I appreciate you guys for all of these questions. I'm very thankful, and thank you guys. But that's going to do it for my video today. I thank you guys for tapping into my channel. I ask you guys, please subscribe, please like the video, please leave a comment, let me know what you guys think of this content. But more than anything, subscribe, hit that subscribe button. I thank you guys for tapping into my channel. I thank you guys for patronizing my content always. Thank you guys so much. I hear all the love and support when I see you guys out in town. I thank you guys for giving me the love and support. Thank you guys for telling me what you guys think of my channel. Thank you guys for everything. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys for tapping in, and I will catch you guys next week.